welcome, welcome. I'm so glad that you're joining us. I want you to pull up a chair and just lean into a good conversation that we're about to have with some young people whose story is going to completely inspire you and challenge you to be your best self. Stay tuned, you're not going to want to miss this one. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're joining us. Listen, this is part 2 of a conversation I have already been having, a juicy conversation, a delightful conversation with these 2 wonderful young ladies right here. We've been talking about just their lives, which are rich and full of so much good stuff. We've got Trinity Stokes over here, who, you know, you may have seen her face a time or 2 on KC Undercover. And then we have this wonderful young woman, Alina Pitts, who's also joining her. She might look familiar as well. She played in the movie War Room. But their lives are filled with so many other things. And that's what we've been talking about in part 1 of this conversation that you've got to go back and view if you didn't see that part, because it's really good stuff. They're back with me again for part 2. Would you guys help me to welcome them back to the show? So glad to have you guys, but we're not only going to be talking to you in part 2, we're going to be talking to some other young ladies who, you know, because that's what this show is about. It's about young people who have decided to use their lives to dream big, to do big things, to do good things, really, that impact the lives of other people. And with that in mind, I cannot wait to introduce you to these 2 young ladies who I just met today, but I've heard about for so long. Their story is incredible. Please help me to welcome Catherine and Isabel Adams. So glad that you guys are here. You're going to come over and take a seat right over here. You're going to join in with these other ladies. We're so glad that you guys are here. Sisters.
Yes.
Yes. Can you tell us how old you are?
I'm 13. And I'm 10.
13 and 10 years old. And what we're about to talk about, the dream that you've had that has now impacted hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people the world over. That dream started 5 years ago. So you had a dream when you were 8 and you were 5, and it's now 5 years down the line and you've made an incredible impact. Your organization is called Paper for Water. Would you please tell us about Paper for Water?
So Paper for Water is a nonprofit organization that we started 5 years ago, and we raise money for water wells in developing countries by selling origami.
By selling origami. Now, for everybody who is not quite exactly sure what origami is, I have some samples here. While I show these samples, I want you to just tell us a little bit about what origami is, what it means, and how you do it.
So origami is the art of paper folding, which originated in Japan. And so you take, it's usually about 30 sheets of paper, and you fold them all the same way, and then you assemble them into a modular origami piece. They each take about 30 pieces of paper and about anywhere from an hour to 5 hours.
Do you want to see this? Hey, Trinity, Alina, grab one of those and take a peek at that. Now, are these ones that I've got in my hands, these look like they're supposed to be Christmas ornaments. Is that why these were made?
So they started out as Christmas ornaments, but now we have all sorts of different types of ornaments and decorations.
Okay, so did the 2 of you just get together one day, and what pricked your heart for water wells to begin with and for making sure people had clean water?
So when we were really, really little, our dad, he made these cutout wooden dogs and horses with us, like out of plywood, and then we hand painted them and we sold them at Starbucks to raise money for a children's hospital in Dallas, and we really loved doing it. And so when we learned about the need for water, we really thought it wasn't fair that girls our age didn't get to go to school and play like regular kids, and so we really wanted to do something about that.
And what brought origami to mind? Because it's not something that, you know, you kind of think of while you're just, you know, running errands throughout the day. So this is kind of a unique skill. It's a unique talent. How did you think of this? And is it something you had to learn, or did you already know it?
My dad is half Japanese, so.
Okay.
As origami originated in Japan, he grew up like folding origami. And so he taught us when we were younger. And so it was just like a fun craft that we could do. And so when we thought of something that we could raise money with, origami just popped in our minds. So.
Okay, so you started making, I'm sure you weren't making something this complex when
No.
you were a 5 and 8-year-old, right? So what did it look like 5 years ago?
So it kind of looked more like the blue one that's in your lap,
Well, but this is
a little bit more simple than that.
okay.
But not much more. It has the same, like it was the same shape, but a couple folds less complicated.
Okay, all right. And so you would make those as young little girls, just the two of you at first?
Yes.
And then what would you do? Would you make just a handful of them and then take them to go try to sell those?
So we made a bunch of them. We had like 40 or 50, I think. And we took them to Starbucks one night, and we had this big party, and a bunch of people came and bought them, and then we had them up at Starbucks for the rest of the month.
And so Starbucks let you leave them there for folks to
Yes.
buy them? And so from that very first fundraising event, how much money did you make?
The first night we sold out and we raised about $800 that night.
The first night?
Yeah.
Did you feel inspired and motivated right after that first night?
Because we planned to do it for about a month, and we planned to only raise anywhere from $500 to $1,000. So
The whole month?
Yes.
Yes.
So you felt inspired. What did you do with that first $800?
So our goal was to partially fund a well in Ethiopia. And so I think after that first night, we were like, well, maybe we can fund the whole well. And so we didn't send, so we send all of our money, well, most of it to Living Water International, and they go and drill our wells for us. So we didn't send it in yet, but we waited until the end of the year to send in our money. And so we just kept raising money, and eventually, by the end of the year, we had raised about $10,000 for the whole well.
Okay, I heard you, yes, that's amazing. But wait, that's not even the like kicker, because here we are now 5 years down the line, and how much money has your organization raised so far?
Over $860,000.
That's amazing. So you just took a little interest that you had, a little skill, a little passion that you had, something that your dad had taught you, and you decided with this. See, most people think my little paper folding, or my little ability to write a poem, or my little ability to make good cookies and maybe something, that's just, it's not enough to actually make a dent in a big problem like clean drinking water. But instead of talking yourselves out of it, you decided to just go ahead and use what was in your hand and do the best you could. And now here you are 5 years later, and a whole lot of people have had clean water because of you. This is good stuff right here, isn't it? Good. So now can you tell us, because it's not just the two of you making some paper ornaments anymore. What does your organization look like now?
We have hundreds of volunteers, anywhere from the age of 5 to 85. And
where do they meet? Where do all these hundreds of volunteers meet? In their own homes, or what do they do?
So once a week on Tuesday morning, from I think 10 to like 3 o'clock, I think about 20 women come to our house, and they fold paper and they have lunch with us. Well, with my mom, we're at school, and then once a month on, I think the first,
On a
any Saturday,
Yeah.
we have about 50 volunteers that come, and we go to our church and we just fold and we kind of pump them up, and so.
Get them motivated?
Yeah.
For like
Yes.
2 hours.
For like 2 hours, and you guys get as many ornaments or whatever figures that you have, you get all those together, and then how are they sold now?
So we go to gift fairs and like craft fairs all over the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
That's hard work. When you're hauling your materials around and taking it from
Yes.
one fair to another, this is not like you guys aren't sitting back eating bonbons, relaxing, chilling out while everybody else is doing the work. You and your parents, with your parents' help, because this is a huge commitment on their part too. You're going to all these different fairs to make sure that people know not just about what you're able to do with your hands, but what you're trying to do with your heart in impacting the lives of other people. So you're going to fairs all over.
And we also have an online store, and we sell them online. And then we have them at 2 gift shops in Dallas, and they just sell them for us. And we just bring them ornaments when they run out. And it's kind of an easy way for us to help people be able to find the ornaments and stuff. So.
And what is your hope? What is your hope for what this organization will do? Because it seems to me like y'all are in this for the long haul. It wasn't a month after all, right?
No.
So what's your hope for this?
Well, our long-term goal is to solve the whole water crisis.
Well, just a small little goal there. Just a small thing. Yeah.
And then our goal for the end of this year is to get to $1 million.
I think you can get to, I think you can reach that goal. You're almost there. You're almost there. That's a good goal right there, sis. Good for you. I want to ask all of you this question because here I am sitting here looking at 4 young, you know that you guys, I was about to say accomplished, because do you know that you guys have done more than some adult women I know who have allowed this shell of insecurity, which all of us have these little voices in us. You know, we got about 6 different people in us, and one of them is always saying, girl, don't even try. You can't do that. You're not capable enough. You're not smart enough. You're not talented enough. Let her do it. She's better than you. She's more talented than you. And so many of us spend our lives, I mean, I know 40, 50, 60-year-old women that are still sort of wallowing around because they've always let fear talk them out of just doing what God has called them to do. I want to know what you've done with that little voice in your head, because I know you've got to experience. Tell me a little bit about that little voice in your head that sometimes is trying to convince you that you're not capable enough. What you do with that and how you are able to push past it and move on with doing the thing. You can start, Trinity.
So when I auditioned for the show, they were looking for a 10-year-old, and I was 8 at the time. So I auditioned, and I got to the last round, and there was an 8-year-old, which was me, a 12-year-old, and a 13-year-old, and a 14-year-old. So the little voice in my head was like, oh, you're not going to get it because they're older than you. They're older than what they're looking for. So they're obviously going to pick one of these 3 girls because you're younger than them. Mm-hmm. But what I tried to do is I just try to block it out, and I say a prayer to myself, or I do what I need to do to get that little voice out of my head. I'll just focus in on God and just focus in on what I'm there to do, and it'll just kind of quiet back. You know?
Is there a specific verse when you say focus on God? Is there a specific verse or a specific thought that maybe your parents have taught you about from the scriptures that really is what anchors you and keeps that fear from taking control?
Yeah, that I can do all things through Jesus Christ that strengthens me. That's the one that they have drilled in me. And I never thought I would ever use it. I was just like, oh, they're just drilling this in me, just drilling this in me for 10 years. They're just drilling this in me. But I never thought I would use it. But it turns out I actually use it a lot more than I expected.
Yeah, and you will for the rest of your life, honey. I can tell you that right now. Alina, what about you? What does that little voice tell you?
A lot of times it tells me like I have like fear is probably like my biggest thing, and so I'm like afraid and like insecure and I'm like, oh no, I have to like talk really loud or something like that. And so Psalms 4, I like just read over it because it's one of those verses like, have you ever opened the Bible and it's just like the perfect verse, like what you need like right then and there. And so I was like, that's really important. So I'll just like read over that when I'm feeling like
Psalm 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
When I'm like, you know, like just like really feeling like down and like I'm not worth it and stuff. And so God has really helped me through that, and like, I mean, he just is really there. And so it's just great when you like can feel his presence and it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid. Like he's just there. And so feeling his presence like really just takes that fear away.
And I love that you said that, Alina, because the reality is when I see the two of you sitting next to each other, you've both done something in the same field, but both of you are very clearly very different people, really outgoing, an introvert. And you're right, sometimes that fear might say, you know what, I need to be like her in order to excel in whatever role it is. And you need to know that at 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds, we deal with the exact same thing. We're constantly looking at each other going, if I was just a little bit like her. But listen, the Lord has given you an assignment. He's given you a lane to run in. And if we're constantly trying to play somebody else's role on the stage of life, then who in the world's going to play you? Because you're the only one that can play you. So you're doing excellent jobs of just being you. Tell me what that voice is. What does it say to you that you can't do or you're not capable of doing?
Usually at the beginning of the year when we start to like think about what our goal is going to be, the voice is like, oh, you can't do that.
Can't reach that.
You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. And when I have to do tests in school, like my voice is like just saying like, oh, you're just going to fail it and you shouldn't even try. And like you're just not good enough. Mm-hmm. And so I think about like that God's always with me and that he's never going to leave me, and that all, like what Trinity said, that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
That's so good. That's so good. We're so glad you try. We're so glad that you don't let that little voice convince you not to even make the attempt to do what you're doing, because you're doing remarkable things. What about you?
For me, oftentimes it's like I really just don't want to do it, and I feel like sometimes I get really nervous in front of crowds. Like I probably shouldn't. It's very, like, I don't know why, because I do things in front of people all the time. But just before I get on stage, sometimes I get really nervous, and I don't want to do it. But
I understand
one of my favorite verses is Galatians 6:9, which is, "Do not grow weary in doing good, for at the right time you will reap a harvest if you do not give up." And I just really love that, especially with Paper for Water, because there's times when I just really want to stop and go back to having sort of a more normal life, I guess.
Is your life kind of not normal?
Yeah. I think
How is it not normal? How does it look different from other kids that you know?
Well, I mean, just being here today, I mean, it's Monday, so it's a school day.
Yeah.
And
You're
I'm
missing school, aren't you?
Which, honestly, I was pretty happy about, because
I'm glad I could help with that.
I had a history test today that I got to miss.
But so you're going to have to make your history test up, though.
Yeah, I'll probably have to do that tomorrow.
Okay. Did you study? Are you ready?
Sort of.
Okay. I'll write you a note. I'll write a note to your history teacher. I don't know if she'll accept it, but that's okay.
But I think, I mean, if you just keep doing it and you just realize that, like for me, that I'm actually making a huge difference in people's lives, then it's just all worth it.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Do you find that the things that you guys are concerned about in life, like the perspective you have on things is different than your friends? In other words, they might be talking about things that to you seem a little superficial or a little kind of, it just doesn't seem as important to you because maybe some of the experiences you've had, particularly you two ladies with your focus on folks having clean drinking water. Do you sometimes find that you're interested in sort of elevating the thinking or the interests of the kids around you because you're kind of like, y'all, there's so much more to think about other than the things you're talking about? Do you ever find that you feel a disconnect between you and your friends? Talk to me about that.
Well, actually, I was kind of just talking about that the other day with my parents, and I sometimes feel like, why are they even like worrying about that, or
like what worried about
what you wear, or I mean like what sports you play, or how well, like how good you are. And honestly, like at my school we wear a school uniform, and so like honestly I don't like care really about clothes at all, and I don't play sports, so I kind of like my life is, I guess, a little bit different than a lot of my friends, and especially with Paper for Water. And I mean, I think just doing what we do, it's just changes like our perspective and, you know, like how we look at things. So,
what about you guys? Your perspective different on anything than your friends you find?
A lot of my friends, like, they're glued to their phone a lot. Like, they're worried about social media and like video games and stuff like that. That like I don't really value as much because I don't have any electronics.
You don't have any electronics?
No, we don't have. Well, we have a TV, but we don't have cable, so we don't really watch TV very much, and I don't have like an iPod or anything like that, so.
Huh. Very interesting.
Well, hey, I bet you they're super focused on Paper for Water, though.
I bet you they are. I bet you they are. And you know what? In a minute, because this is going to be, we're going to finish this line of questioning. Then, really, how I want to end this segment is to really talk about your parents. Because with you guys sitting up here, the only thing I hear and see right now is that y'all have amazing parents. That's what
Hallelujah.
it is. It's a statement about the parents that you have and the choices, the hard choices that they've made to rear you in a specific way that is not congruent with society, it's not congruent with your friends, and that's okay. They want you to be who God has called you to be, so that's awesome. Alina and Trinity, both of you were about to say something about how you sometimes feel there's maybe a disconnect between you and your friends a little bit.
It's a little bit frustrating because you don't want to like tell them like, are you really like worried about this? Like, who cares what you look like?
Yeah.
I mean, like, some people do, but who cares what they think?
Yeah.
And so it really just frustrates me because you're over here like thinking about, oh my gosh, should I go out of the country or something? And your friends are like, oh my gosh, my phone broke. I mean, it just frustrates me a little. And so like, I mean, I just have to like pray about it, like kind of just like pray that God will like really reach them so that they won't be worried about stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, it's a little bit what Isabel said. It's kind of like people are always on their phone, and it's like, I kind of like to be creative. I kind of like to think, I like to think of new ideas and new inventions, and I like to tinker. I'm not really always on the devices. Even though I have an iPod, I can only use it on the weekends. At first, I thought that was the most bizarre decision ever. I was like, no! but now I think it's a great choice because it allows me to be.
Well, I'm glad you approve of your parents' decision.
I approve this message.
But let me just say, though, that I think that what you just said is so interesting because I think that electronics are dumbing us all down.
Yeah.
Like, there's no room or margin for creativity anymore because we have something thinking for us, we have something sort of numbing us, sort of causing us to be zombies walking around. And I don't think that we realize that if we're never bored, in other words, if we rob, particularly from our children, if we rob from them the opportunity to have nothing to do, to be bored, if we rob them of that, we also rob them of the privilege of coming up. Y'all know when we were little, we had to come up with stuff to do. You know what I mean? We had to be creative and run around with our friends and tinker, like you just said. We had margin in our minds to do that. And now we haven't given our kids opportunity to do that because they're inundated with all these electronics. So I actually think that it is not bizarre at all.
Neither do I anymore.
That's right. Because
my mom actually did this thing. So I was watching a lot of TV. I was catching up on all my shows for like 2 weeks, right? And I was not creative at all. I wasn't thinking at all. So my mom cut the TV off. I was not allowed to watch it for about 2 weeks, the same amount of time. Then I was binge watching all my shows, right? I came up with about 5 new inventions. It was amazing. And my mom was like, see, you need to stop watching all that TV.
I bet she looked exactly like that when she said it.
She did, actually.
Yeah. Does she do this whole thing you do like this? Does she do that too?
Not as much as I do, though.
Not as much as you do.
Pretty similar, though.
Well, I want to ask you about your parents, all of you. I think that you must have remarkable parents because for you to have the esteem that you have that's very clearly been planted in you, not just about the kind of woman that you are, but whose you are, who you belong to, that's so clear that they have been deliberate and intentional about that. And so for you to be so remarkable, what we really want to know is, think about some intentional things you've watched your parents do. Like one of them you just told us, Trinity, just making a boundary for you that I don't care what television show you on. In this house, you're not going to be on your iPod all day long. I love that you have boundaries there. What are some things that your parents have put in place for your life? No electronics in your home for your parents. That's what they chose to do. What are some things you've seen your parents do? And now when you look at it, you're like, huh, that really is helping to shape me into the woman that I've become. What do you think about your mom and dad?
Well, I mean, kind of like what you said, we don't have a TV really, and honestly, I'm kind of glad because I love to read, and honestly, I don't even remember the last time I watched a whole movie. So that sounds probably really odd for a 13-year-old, but it's kind of nice because it's a lot more quiet and like you have a space to like think, I guess. And I love reading and drawing and just kind of just sitting there and thinking, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes I wish I had a phone and sometimes I wish I had a TV, but then there's times when I realize, oh, it's just kind of not worth it, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of nice not to have it.
You're so mature. Wow. You know, I know these two young guys. Well, they're 18 and 15 now. But they have helped me probably for the past 6 years. I've sort of been brainstorming this series that I've written called the Prince Warriors series.
I just read the first book
Did you
today.
read the first? Did you like it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Woo, I'm so glad. That would have been embarrassing if you would have said it's terrible. I'm so glad. But these guys have been helping me brainstorm for 6 years. I'd write stories up and I'd send it to these boys because they're very imaginative. They love like creativity. They can like create video games and stuff. And one of the things I noticed about them is exactly what you guys are saying. They have one little television, analog TV that's in the back of their house. They don't really watch TV, and they have space in their brains to be creative. And they have been so helpful in sort of dreaming up where these stories and these characters could go. And again, I see them when I look at you in the sense that they've had margin for imagination. And that's what you've had because of the boundaries your parents have put around you. That's awesome. What about you? Anything else that you've seen your parents do, even in how they've taught you or how they've instructed you, that has sort of shaped the kind of woman you are?
My dad, he's very particular about getting us to church every single week. And we do horseback riding, and we sometimes we want to do shows, and they're always on Sunday morning.
What do you mean shows?
They're like shows.
like jumping shows or
Like
with
horse
horses.
shows.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But my dad always sends us to church instead. And it's just been, because like sometimes I'm one of the only kids in Sunday school, because especially over the holidays and everybody's out doing like parties and stuff. But it's just really great because every Sunday we all need to go to church and kind of just like hear more about God and sort of just like get hyped up for the week. And so
Yeah.
I was thinking more relaxed.
That's awesome. And I'm going to ask you two the same question, but I got to ask you guys this. I don't know if you could talk about this or not, but I heard that something very interesting and unique and exciting is about to happen with your family. For about 8 months, you're going to have something going on. Can you share a little bit about what's getting ready to happen, what your parents are getting ready to do with your family?
So we're going to take off 8 months and go travel all around the world. And we're going to go to South America and visit some of the wells we funded, and also Africa and a couple other places. And we've been planning this for like 3 years. And actually, when I was in kindergarten, so 8 years ago, my dad, we were on a camp out, and he was like, one day I want to take off and go travel the world. And I think that was kind of when like he first got the idea, and that was like 8 years ago. So we've really been planning this for a long time. And so now we're really excited, and we're going to go.
I heard your dad selling like your cars, selling everything, and you guys are, well, what's your history teacher going to think about that?
She's gonna get an A.
So you're going to homeschool then for at least that year,
We're
right?
going to be doing like all our same classes and stuff that our friends are doing, but we're going to like be doing it online, and so.
Yeah, and so your dad's going to take you to see the wells that you've been able to help build all over the world.
Our whole family's going, even our younger sister.
Isn't that awesome, y'all? That's awesome. We're excited about that for you. Okay, Alina, it's your turn. Tell us about your parents and what they have done that's made you the person that you are.
So a lot of this is true, but probably probably having a phone, and like they won't let me have a phone yet. And so, this is kind of what we've been talking about, but like if you really think about it, like I've started to like not even care anymore when my friends like, you don't have a phone? I'm like, nope, no, I don't.
That's our job as parents, to wear you down.
So it's gotten to the point where I'm just like, whatever, I don't even care anymore. Because now I really am grateful that I'm like not that one kid that's like glued on their phone or like getting it taken away because you did something.
Yeah.
Or like, so it's just made me, and I think it just makes you like really grateful because like the fact that you do have this and this and this and this. And so I think it's kind of like made me a little bit more grateful.
That's great. That's great.
The one thing that I'm very grateful that my parents have instructed me in is they really make sure that we sit down and have devotionals in the morning or in the evening, but we always have Bible study, whether it be in the morning, in the evening, or in the car. We always have some form of the Word of God in us daily, and I think that is very critical for everybody to have, so that way like once we read it afterwards we feel so much at ease and more peaceful and joyful instead of being grumpy all day. And it's kind of like your morning coffee or something. It gets you so excited.
Girl, what you know about morning coffee?
I've never had it. I hear that that's what makes people hype. I don't know.
Okay.
Never. I don't drink coffee. I'm not allowed to.
You're not allowed to. It's yet another boundary in your life.
I don't like coffee.
It does taste kind of weird, but you know, if you put some butter pecan creamer in there, you'll be all right.
They accidentally put some in my Starbucks drink.
So you get a Starbucks drink that doesn't have any coffee in it, I heard, like milk and like caramel or something.
I get a pumpkin spice latte, no caffeine, with whipped cream and caramel. If you're making a Starbucks run, let me know.
You all are delightful young ladies, and really more than just sort of applauding your accomplishments, we're actually challenged by your accomplishments. We're challenged and inspired that if there's something that we can do, even if someone else might look at this skill, this talent, this gift that we have and think that it's minor, that it's not, that we really can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard that there's a little gift from you guys. There's a gift for everybody that is in the studio audience today that's gonna go home with one of these. So they made them just for you. We wanna thank all of you for being here. And you know what, we're gonna clap our way out of the show, but we want you to know that we're not really clapping for you on the way out. We're gonna be clapping for your parents because we think you have exceptional